Hello, Beverley. How are you?
Hello, Chris. I'm good, thank you. And so great to talk with you again and open mock conversations.
And what subject are we talking about today?
Well, it's about recovery and overcoming trauma responses, which I think it's fair to say, with everything that's been going on around, more and more people are becoming aware of the effects and stress on them, but not necessarily how to shut that off and what steps that they can, or tools they can use themselves. And that's what is great about today, because we can share some insight from ourselves, but also give some tips to anybody who's watching right now.
Yeah, lovely. So the title I came up with was Self-Care After Adversity, and that can mean anything to many people. So it's just, what have you been through in your life that's caused you a negative impact, and how do you deal with that in the here and the now and in the future?
And I think you've said it really well, and it opens that understanding, because there's a real misconception. Oh, I'm okay because this happened to me, I can deal with it, but they're much worse off. But actually, we all experience something at some time, whether it's a one-time big rock, as you call some of the big stresses, or lots of little things. And when you add them all up, they become a very huge rock to carry. And we mustn't minimize. That's not to say that every time we feel something, we become over anxious. However, it is important to get a balance and recognize and listen to our bodies that are trying to talk to us, and check in with, okay, how am I feeling? Which can be quite scary at times.
It can be, but we also hear from a lot of people, oh, I recognise that someone else has gone through a lot more than me, and I should be really thankful for what I've got, and I shouldn't really be moaning in inverted commas, or I shouldn't be able to feel like I am. What gives me the right to feel down? What gives me the right to be depressed? Well, the fact that you've had a negative impact, the fact that you've had harm done to you, gives you the right to feel the way that you do, no matter what you've gone through. And we should never compare ourselves with other people.
Absolutely, because the harm comes to us from different sources. So it could be something that we're seeing happening to somebody else, we're witnessing, as we see in the media all the time. It could be things that we've overheard. So they're not messages that have been said to us, but we've received those messages, particularly about, when you think about body image, etc. They're perceived messages, and they're right for that person. Or we know of somebody that's been physically, sexually, or emotionally abused, and we've seen it, or we've been taking on that information. So it's either we've received it ourselves, or we've witnessed it, and we've received that. All has impact. And in all fairness, that's why I choose not to watch violent films.
Yeah, I get that. But on the flip of that, Bev, often to get me to sleep, I will watch a crime documentary. And unfortunately, it's always about stuff that I've connected through with on a daily basis. Either I've received it myself, in inverted commas, or I've heard from other people that they've gone through that stuff. But it just intrigues me, because I like to learn about the psychology behind why people do things, and I like to learn about recovery approaches or different tools that people use to get on with their lives. So it's not just about the crime, but all of that fascinates me.
Absolutely.
But maybe not the best thing to be doing when you are, like, in a trauma episode.
And this is what's really good about having conversations like this, because there'll be people now watching, listening, who can identify at different times. And absolutely, like yourself, I find it very interesting when I watch any program that is involving real, live, everyday life, even what we consider rubbish TV. I like seeing, I can think of, I don't want to say a particular name, but when you're watching real people in a situation, I'm not necessarily looking at the you know, what's being advertised. I'm watching different relationships, how people react to different, and because it's a learning and it's a knowledge, and when we're at that place that we're ready to learn and want more, we don't always know the answers how, but it means that we're ready to change and we're ready to understand what's happening in our body, our mind, or should I say neurological pathways, and most importantly, our emotions when we're ready. Because when we don't want to feel, we use coping mechanisms to numb that feeling.
Yeah, and we was talking about this the other day, weren't we, about like triggers and why triggers upset us so much and what happens in the brain. And I know you can discuss that in detail because you're more attuned to that theory than I am. I've got a base knowledge, but you've got a deeper knowledge. But it's also about understanding what your triggers are, what they do to you, and trying to diffuse that by having all these different tools in your toolkit and practicing those tools, those aids, when you're not in a trauma response, so that you can call upon them readily when you are in a trauma response.
So when we look at the word trigger, there's lots of different words, a reaction. Most of us don't actually understand that we're being triggered. I remember I didn't know it was the norm, isn't that, you know, what is a trigger? It can be anything that is said, smells, so it can be visual, it can be a taste. For me, at one time, I couldn't even watch that comedy program, The Royal Family, because I could literally smell what their house smelt like, with the smoking, with the frying, the alcohol. That was a trigger to me, which sounds ironic because I actually wasn't there to smell it. I was watching something, but it took me back to a place which was a toxic environment for me. So our bodies are made to keep us safe. So, for instance, using that as a trigger and an example, my mind becomes alerted. My body, I have no choice over it. So the amygdala that's in our brain suddenly receives messages, I'm back in that toxic environment. It then sets the alarm off and releases adrenaline. And the response to my body, I don't get a choice over. There's a reaction. So it shuts my right hand brain down, which is the thinking part, the creative part of our mind, the forward planning, shuts that right down, and we get sometimes foggy brain, or we just can't take anything else on, sometimes even a headache. The reactive part is where we want to run, or we want to fight, or freeze, or flop, or even friend. You know that saying, keep your friends close but your enemies closer. That's a response, and we don't actually get a choice with at that time what decision our body has made. So when that happens, for me, I often get a freeze response or disassociation. So it means you can't remove yourself at the time, but you feel like you've been taken up somewhere higher. And maybe do you recall a time sometimes when you may be in a conversation with someone and you sort of go off somewhere else, and you haven't stayed in the moment in the conversation. That's disassociation. That's a freeze response. Now I'm going to say something that's going to sound silly to some people, because they're going to say, how will I know? But when we start to recognize that that's happening in our body, that is a great start. Because for me, once I started to realize that my breathing went shallow, my heart started racing. I'd get a tingling in my hands or my arms, like goosebumps. My mind would just literally take me away. My legs, ironically, were tense.
Heavy.
The biggest thing being sick, having a sick feeling in my stomach. Have you got someone with you there?
That's my doggy.
We've always got them around us, and they're really calming. But it's that sick feeling in your stomach. That's when I know that's the biggest, like, What is it I'm feeling? So as soon as I'm able to check in and think, what is it? Okay, my body thinks I'm back in this unsafe place. What can I do to stop the adrenaline and reassure my body? So for me, I've got lots of different things, but the first thing I do is breathe slowly. And
do you recognize that you're not in that toxic environment? You bring yourself back into the here and the now by the breathing, and you reassure yourself that you are actually safe?
Yes. Yeah. If I'm in an environment, so I've been in the cinema before and an advert came up, and this was years ago, and an advert came up and it was a certain lager and there were chairs all placed up and stacked up. And again, that triggered me back to something from when I was really young. So I felt it. My immediate reaction was to get out of there. That's okay. I want to leave. Can I leave? Yes, I can leave. I can go to the ladies. Do I need fresh air? Yes, I need fresh air. I can take myself out. I did that. Calm myself down. Come back in. Watch the TV. But the film, I should say.
Yeah. Yeah. So often a trigger or something that stimulates our trigger response, our alarm system, it's all subconscious. We don't actually, we feel something before we think it and before we acknowledge actually what it is, what's going on, because that alarm system in your brain that you were talking about, that amygdala, gets fired off subconsciously, because that is the thing that wants to keep us safe. But in times of danger or perceived danger, a trigger, then it gets fired off, and then, as you said, that adrenaline, that cortisol gets released. And if we are in a constant state of fear where the amygdala is being fired off all of the time, that tap, adrenaline, cortisol tap, literally is on all of the time. It doesn't switch off, it dysregulates. So over time, it's those hormones that are running through us, those stress hormones that are running through us, that actually can cause long-term damage to us mentally and physically.
Yeah, because we all need some of that cortisol, some of that adrenaline, because that's what gets us up. That's what enables us to go running or to do all different things. But it's like a balance. When it's turned on, it's leaking too much.
Yeah.
But we also start to become addicted to it. It's something that we know. And if it's through childhood, you learn that as part of your everyday learning. You don't know any different. You know that when you enter a school, for instance, and you think you're being bullied, you will be prepared, whatever way it is, to get through that day. If you're going home and you're in a toxic environment, you will learn to read the environment. So it becomes your everyday norm.
Yeah, that's what I was going to say. Your body actually defaults to it without you actually knowing, but that is your default situation.
Yes. Yeah. So I know I'm very, very good in an emergency. Afterwards, when I sit down, I've got all this adrenaline, I'll shake.
Yeah. Yeah.
What about yourself?
I think I am good in an emergency, but at the end of the day, for me, it's like my default response is usually fight or flight. It's not freeze. I know we don't have no say over it, but I don't tend to freeze. My hypervigilance makes me default into, right, what's going on? I'm going to sort that out. What is the situation? And I've got myself into some bothers, I tell you, over the years, and I've had to learn to actually, no, just assess quietly. Don't get so wound up. And if you need to step in, you can step in, but actually just watch and see how things play out. And they will not go the way that you perceive them to go. But because if you've been brought up in, violent households, you expect it to go a certain way. You almost expect all situations that start off in a familiar way to end up in that familiar way. And it's not always the case. So it's about learning to actually foot off the gas, just assess. And you know what? don't put yourself in danger. Pick up the phone. Hello, 999.
But that's what's also so good. Like you said, we don't have a choice how we initially react. It's how our body reacts. So we're very good. We have that third ear, a lot of people, that we don't realise that we have. And we're assessing in seconds. But it's how we react afterwards. So once we become aware of it, and I'm saying that very lightly, because this is the hard work. So self-care sounds so simple. Hello, is that Ruby there?
Yes, because she's not getting attention.
Yeah. So when I've lost my brain's switched off now. So when we, and this is what's just happened now, so that made me jump and then it breaks my train of thought, but that's what's good because you can see it. So when we become aware and we look at self-care when we're in a good place is easy. Let's be honest, anything's easy when you're in a good place. It's when you really need to use it is the learning.
Yeah.
That is
when you're actually in a situation where you need to recall upon those tools that you've been practicing that are well established for you.
Absolutely. And we've got some questions here, and there's a question I'd like to read out, and it's from a lady. I'm going to call her P because I'm not sure that we've got permission to use her full name, but she came up with a really good question and I really liked it. She said, I have self-care tools and in the main use whichever as when and when needed. My question is, how do you manage to maintain being well in yourself? You get on with life, things are going okay daily, but how to keep that momentum when your own inner voice and feelings get a look-in, so to speak? Hope that makes sense. It's keeping that constant wellness and belief, ? So over to you first, Chris. What about yourself?
Sorry, what was the question you're asking? Because my dog is I'm being hyper vigilant. She's misbehaving.
She's looking for a cuddle. So the question is basically, how do you manage to maintain being well in yourself, especially when you get on with life, things are going okay daily, but how to keep that momentum when your own inner voice and feelings get a look in?
So is P saying when she has self-doubt?
Yes.
Is that what she's saying? Yeah, we all have that. We're all human. We all have self-doubt. We all do wonder from time to time if we are good enough, if we are adding value to us, our families, society as a whole. And when we see other people in particular really doing what we perceive to be well, or we perceive for them to be successful, and we can't see ourselves on that same platform, or we don't think that we've achieved as much as somebody else, we will have self-doubt, and it affects our self-worth and it affects our self-esteem. So my answer to that is, all you can do is be the best version of you can be, whatever that looks like. Yeah. So it's about working out for you in your life, what is it you want from life? Where are you in conjunction to that? And how can you work towards getting yourself from here, where you are now, to where you want to be? And often when I see people that I perceive to be more successful or perceive to be in a place where I would like to be, I follow them, I watch them, I will speak to them. If they've written books, I will buy their books. If they run courses, I will go on their courses. I will learn as much as I can, but then I will not be a second form of them. I will be my own version of that. And everybody will grow into their own pathway, but they may need to just look sideways and upwards to find out how to make that happen for themselves. But day to day, you've got life ticking along. You can keep on top of your health and well-being because you've got things in place to do that. But we as human beings, we are always judging. We are always comparing. but it's about putting that into perspective and learning that you are good enough as you are right now.
So with yourself,
Yes.
how do you find that balance when you're supporting others, and you do that through your fitness and through your courses for abuse, etc.? How do you keep yourself in a good place too?
Obviously I do a lot of fitness, and that helps me maintain mental wellness and physical wellness, but I also spend more time now trying to just relax. I find relaxing, and have done over the years, really difficult to do, because for me, when I'm just sitting here doing nothing, and I don't think I ever sit there and do nothing, but when I perceive myself to be sitting here doing nothing because I'm not on that course or meeting that person or going up to the north of the country or the south of the country, for example, I'm either being, again, judgmental, I'm being lazy, I'm not being productive, and it's a waste of time. And also, if I'm not working on something or towards something, it gives me too much time to think about stuff that I've locked away in my box. And unfortunately, that stuff that you've locked away, for some people, they are able to do that and they do not have negative impact from that. But many victims and survivors think they can lock things away and not deal with them, but we can't, because it shows up mentally or physically. And we know that just from our own lived experiences and from the people that we work with. So
Absolutely.
I have to work really hard, Beverley, to relax and regenerate. And for me, it's hot baths, it's massage, it's going out for those walks in nature, etc. So that's how I keep healthy and well. And also looking at my nutrition as well is really important to me.
Absolutely. It's the fundamental, the basics of nature, or nurture, I should say, nurture and love, which, as we're talking now, we know, and it sounds so simple, but we also know how much time it's taken to learn that. And that's why it's important to share, because it's learning. For me, I don't know what came first, learning the boundaries or learning how to be vulnerable.
Two great big topics on their own, but we will touch upon them. Before you talk about those two things, do you want to talk about what's behind you, or are you going to tie it in somehow?
No, I'll do it right now, because vulnerability, I'll put my hands up. I could have done this, a few years ago, shared with everybody listening, but actually it's become an important tool for me. So when we say surround ourselves by positive things that we've done or positive words, at one time I thought, oh, that's good. Yeah, okay. But what about the other bits? But do you know what? Our subconscious is about 90%. That's underneath the water. Okay. Our conscious thinking is only, for sometimes 10%, for other people it's 20%, so it can vary. So those subconscious messages need to be addressed regularly. So
it's like literally the tip of the iceberg, isn't it?
Absolutely. So what we're thinking is, so oh, I can do this, and then you've got at least 80% underneath with that, can you, are you sure? Because these are all messages.
Self-doubt monsters.
So one of my relaxing ways, because we both obviously have supervision, we both give ourselves the best gift that you can, because we give our space time to work with other people so we can hear ourselves. But there's tools that I have myself, and one of them is arts and crafts and colours. I love that. And instead of thinking, I can't do that, this is my own art, but this is positive words, such as, I am worthy of love. I trust my own thinking. I am me. And I love hearts, as you can see. I give myself lots of love. And it doesn't matter where you are in your recovery program, it's still important to do this, because it's not something you do once, oh, and tick the box, I've done it. It's a continued way of learning, living.
Okay.
It's part of my everyday. So if it's not here, it's written on different boards. I have note sticks. I've even got some in my purse, in my phone, because it's my way of speaking to myself.
I'm laughing because you call them note sticks. Most of us guys know it as post-it notes. Can you just talk us through this exercise that you do?
Well, I'll give you an example. So on the back of here, and I don't mind sharing. So finance, as I call it, the F word.
Finances.
Yeah.
Yeah.
F word. So I was in a position, and finances, like most of us, is actually very emotive.
Yeah.
It's one of the things we don't want to talk about. And I was in a situation, and it was triggering me left, right, and centre, fear of judgment and everything. And I realised I became headless, and I didn't know what to do. And I knew a walk wasn't going to do it. Yeah, I was, and I thought, I need to get out of my head. So what I did, I picked up a black pen.
Yeah.
First of all, because for me, black represents that hole that used to be inside me. And I used to keep people away from me, because if they got to really know me, they wouldn't see me, they'd get to know the inside of me, and then they wouldn't want to be friends with me. And that's because of the guilt and shame that I took from my childhood.
Yeah.
I took the responsibility on my own, whereas now I know it's not mine to carry.
Yeah.
That, thank you, I can release. That doesn't mean to say some of those feelings don't stay with you.
Mm-hmm.
So I want to get them out and give them words. So I was writing down how I was feeling about that situation.
Okay.
Once I did that, I was then able to pick up another colour, which for me was orange, because it's about adventure and it's about moving forward. Because that feeling we get in our stomach, sometimes of fear, is also the same feeling of excitement. And what if this wasn't true? What if that was true? So then, by reframing it, I then was able to change most of what I'd got out and recognised.
Could you give us an example?
Absolutely. So let's go to simple. I'll use you.
Thanks.
Okay. Now, and we keep it very, very simple, because that's taking years to get to that level.
Yes.
So I've got some colours here. I've got navy blue, I've got black, I've got green, orange, and red. What is your least favourite colour?
Probably red.
Okay. What is it about red you don't like?
My mum used to like red. Everything was red in the house.
Okay.
We had red curtains, red carpet, red sofas.
Okay.
And so that was a toxic environment for me.
So when you see red, what is it your body feels?
Just don't like it. Just don't like it. Dirty, dingy, smelly. And that's because of the person that used to sit on it as well. But I won't go into too much detail. I'll just keep it at that level.
Okay. So thinking about the colour red, and being, you don't like it, and it's dirty, dingy and smelly. Right now, where are you feeling it physically in your body?
Shoulders, throat.
Okay. What is it that you're feeling on your shoulders?
Tightness.
Tightness.
Ready to spring.
Yeah. Anything else, Chris?
Hips tightened.
Okay. Anything else?
No.
Okay. So we're using this colour, and your body, it's triggering your body in a physical way.
Yes.
Okay. So what we're going to do is just acknowledge that. Okay. And take a deep breath. Okay. Yeah. Release those hips, release those shoulders, because your body sees red at the moment because it takes you to a different place.
Yeah, it does. Yeah.
Now, what about a nice colour for you?
Blue for
Blue.
me.
Okay, so blue. What does blue mean for you?
Brightness, sunny skies, colourful seas. And as you can see, all my logos are in blue, all my clothing, most of it is blue. She says, wearing grey and black today.
You've got blue on your top.
Yeah, but my go-to colour is that sea sunny blue.
Okay. So do you have any smell relating to that as well?
To the red?
To the blue?
Oh, to the blue, warm air, going on holiday, stepping off that plane. It actually makes me smile when I see the right colour blue.
Yeah.
Makes me relax.
Yeah. Okay. How are you feeling that in your body?
I'm smiling, relaxed.
Yeah. Relaxed. What's happening with your shoulders or your hips?
They're relaxed.
Yeah. Anything
Softened.
else?
It's
Yeah.
all softened. It's down regulated.
Yeah. So now your body's releasing cortisol. Not cortisol, so it's serotonin.
Yes.
The feel-good hormone. Serotonin.
Yeah.
That feel-good hormone that we want to release. And that gives an example of what a trigger is, but also how you've changed that around in seconds.
Yeah.
And this is where, for instance, I used to find journaling really challenging, whereas I ask those same questions now and just do it in words. And what's ironic, I did ask you about a smell with the blue. I didn't have to with the red. You told me what that, and that's why I wanted to tap into the smell, because it was the one thing. Because yeah, and it was just to bring that out. So what we've done is we've reframed that. One last question, which is sometimes really challenging, but our body's got used to seeing your, one of your triggers is red. Is there anything that's red that you like?
Oh, I mean, I did do red hearts on Valentine's. However, I did it because that's the expectation. I always share a blue heart.
See, that's lovely. So you've recognised what's right for you. And there you go. That's a boundary that's right for you. That's what you want. So I'm going to do blue hearts for you. So the next step I would do is put blue hearts all over this red area.
Right.
Because, again, it's a visual that if you're in that place and you're feeling yourself triggered, if it's left out, you can see it. It's okay to have this trigger, but I can give myself the love back. And that's just a simple example of what I learned to do years ago.
And is that exercise called anything specific?
No.
It's just the Beverley Ann exercise. The step forward exercise.
Absolutely. It's like anything. It's amalgamation of others. And for me, when I was learning from my own lived experience, there were some really good examples of exercises, but I couldn't take them on board. And I like to deconstruct and make them so simple, because once we make something simple, we can then go on from there.
But with that exercise, do I then learn how to like red, or do I just acknowledge that, no, that's not for me, and to go with what does work for me?
So, yeah, it's whatever's right for you. So for some people, so I will tell you that I don't like black, but then there's that other question, is that true? Well, actually, no, I used to be petrified of the dark.
Yeah.
But when I'm in a good place, there's nothing better than waking up in the middle of the night and feeling calm and in that darkness and enjoying that darkness and that serenity.
Yeah. So no matter what your beliefs are, you always keep questioning, is it true or has things changed?
Yeah. And that's not that I go around all day saying, is this true? Is this true? But yeah, You know, if I find I'm in a place, then it's like, is that true? Is that relevant for today?
Yeah, especially if you're getting triggered about something that has happened in the past. Obviously, it's not going on for you now. The trigger has, and the bodily response has, but you're not in that situation anymore. You're in today's situation. So that's when you start asking yourself, well, actually, am I still in danger? No, I'm not. So if you're not, then down-regulate yourself, understand.
And that's where our bodies are fantastic, because they are built for us to survive, and they're trying to protect us. And that's when we don't have the choice. So there's a word you use about responsibility, and
Yes.
breaking that down and having the ability to respond.
Yeah.
And I love how you do that, because there again, as we said earlier, once we have tools and we have knowledge, it gives us the ability to respond to what our body is physically doing.
Yeah, yeah. And, you know, when I talk about that word responsibility, for so many people, it feels heavy. It feels like, well, actually, what are you saying? That I was responsible for what happened to me? No, no, never, ever. Other people were responsible as adults for doing what they did to you as a child, as an adolescent or an adult. They are responsible for their own actions. However, your ability to respond in the here and the now and going forward is within your power, is within your control, is within the gift to give yourself.
Yes, and it's the learning of that ability, and that comes back to, and we won't have time to go into it now, but when we talk about boundaries, it's being able to check in. Is this true for me right now? What choices do I have? Because learning to choose is another thing. You know, everybody has a right to choose. Even when we think we don't have a choice, we do. And I'm going to give a really great analogy that I remember sitting on an aeroplane and having that oxygen mask thing, being told when my children were sitting next to me, put the oxygen mask on before you help your children. And instinctively it was like, no, I'm going to do my children first and then I'll put it on me. And then I realized years later, oh, I understand now. If I put the oxygen mask on, I can help my children calmly, slowly. I can help the people next to me. I can help the whole plane.
Yeah.
But if I don't look after me first,
yeah,
I can just about look after them, maybe.
Yeah. But
So
that really comes down to victim and survivors not either valuing themselves or thinking that they are allowed to and able to look after themselves. Do they deserve it? And we've even got victim and survivors that we're working with right now that said to us, but I'm not allowed to do that for myself, am I? You know, I have to put everybody else first. I'm at the bottom of the pile. And what did you say?
it's about being able to have a relationship with yourself and to look after yourself first, because that way, and respecting yourself, self-respect, because then other people will know how to treat us and we will know what to receive, but then we'll also be able to give to them. But it has to start with us.
And all of the work has to start with us, doesn't it? The putting the boundaries in place. You know, I wouldn't treat you as my friend in a really horrible way. I wouldn't disrespect you. I wouldn't abuse you. I wouldn't hate upon you. I wouldn't wish you the worst. I would do all the reverse of that. I love you. I care for you. I want to be there for you. I want the best for you. Yep. So if we want that for our loved ones, then we have to give ourselves that gift as well.
Absolutely. Because if we're not careful what we're doing, we're giving to other people, but then we're expecting back. Whereas if we're doing it to ourselves and then giving to others, and then it's not received in the best way, we're not responsible for how somebody receives it, but if they then treat us in a way that doesn't feel right and isn't right for us, that's when we can say thank you, but no thank you.
Yeah, but it is going back, isn't it, Bev, to understand what is a healthy relationship. What does that actually look like? You know, what boundaries am I going to put in place to protect me? What do I expect in any relationship, be it with a friend, a partner, or my children? Because
Well,
I know loads of people whose children disrespect them, walk all over them, and basically even physically hit them. And you're
and
like,
this,
how did it get to that?
because, well, that happens step by step, and we've all been in different scenarios. You know, if you've got a pan of boiling water and you put a frog in it, he'll jump out. Put a frog in a pan of cold water, turn the heat up bit by bit, and you'll boil him. It's the same thing. So, but that's when what we often do without realizing, we're giving. So what I say with all my clients when we start looking at relationships, forget everyone else, and let's look at you. What's your relationship like with yourself? How do you treat yourself? And sometimes that's so huge, people can't do that. So they have to think of themselves as another person, as a third person. How do you treat yourself? Because how you treat yourself is what you receive. And that's challenging and really hard. And we've been there with our lived experience. So we know that. But it's once we start looking after ourselves and then thinking, oh, actually, that's not right for me, then that's okay to say, it's not right for me. Thank you.
Yeah.
This is what works for me.
But there are many people that are in these unhealthy relationships that one may not realize that they're in an unhealthy relationship because all of their relationships have just been like that. And some people are lonely and they just feel that any relationship is better than no relationship. And there are some people that the relationship started off really, really well, healthy, loving, nurturing, and it just turned into this unhealthy relationship, but they don't know how to leave and they need help and support to leave. And again, we can't tell anyone to do anything, but what we can do is just raise awareness and ask people to think about different things. And if things are not serving them, and if they do want to make a change, to look outside and get that help and that support, and then make the changes with that help and support that they feel is right for them.
Absolutely. And sometimes what can happen, and we've all been there, you know, we're so stuck, we may go to the same friend and all we're talking about is how bad it is.
Yeah.
But actually, a good friend will actually say, enough, I've heard about how bad it is. What are your options? And if it isn't them, we'll say ourselves, I'm fed up of moaning. What is it that I don't like? And I think what you've said before is really good. So when you don't know how to change it, because let's be honest, we don't know. If we write down what we don't like and then go back, because then that'll show what you don't want, and then reframe it into, well, what do you want?
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah. That's a great step.
We did some work, didn't we, on the workshop that we run recently together, where someone said, well, I don't actually know what I want from my life. I don't know what I actually want for myself. I don't know what I actually want from a relationship. So we just said, well, write down everything that you've been through and you don't like and why, and then flip it, exactly what you just said, but flip it, and then you'll come up with what you do want from your life, how you do want to be treated, and what going forward you're going to put in place for yourself. So then all of a sudden you've got your boundaries, you've got what you're looking for.
Absolutely. And for me, I like a big piece of paper. I mean, years ago, don't get me wrong, crikey, I had the smallest bits of paper and I used to write on them because I didn't want anyone to read it. And that was right for me at that time. And sometimes I'd write and then burn it.
Right.
Whereas now, you know, when I write like I did there, I call it my art now, because actually that's who I am. That was my brain that day. And, you know, I can't change who I am personally, but I have changed how I react.
Yes.
And there's
your ability to respond has changed.
Absolutely. And one last question from another person before we finish, which I think is really good, because we touched on this at the beginning, because when we are going through something, yeah, we do often have the power to change, but sometimes we're witnessing things. So at the moment, with the awful happenings in Ukraine, how do we battle your own upset over it and guilt of being upset when actually I'm in a far better place and should feel pleased with that? Yet I'm feeling I am being selfish when I think of my well-being.
Again, we did touch upon this, didn't we? It's all about what is within your control, what is outside of your control, and what is your gift that you have today that you can do something with. So Ukraine, the war, the politics around all of that, we can't change any of that because we're not the government, we're not the leaders of the country, but we can help people in the local community, either here or in Ukraine, by donating money, if that's what we want to do, or by buying supplies, or by going through our own cupboards and sorting out warm clothing, whatever it is, we can do what we can. Or again, we flip this and we think, okay, that's happening. I am really sad and horrified about it, but I can't do anything about it. But what can I do? There's another person down the road, or there's a person in my family, or there is someone in my workplace that I know is having a hard time. How can I help them? So we can always pay forwards in some way. And then if we put our own oxygen mask on first, help ourselves as much as we can, we then try and pay it forwards where we can with our expertise, with our knowledge, or just being a human being and reaching out and offering help. Or we can make donations, or if we've got the network and we know people that know people in power, then we could put pressure on, we could go on much, you know, it's endless what you can do. But I also want to say is that we do need to have a think about what we do have and what we are grateful for. And, you know, compared to other people, we are in a better situation, but there are always people better off than us, and there's always people worse off than us. But we shouldn't compare and we shouldn't judge, but we do because it's human nature. But, you know, just be a good human being and help wherever you can, but start with yourself first with that oxygen mask, and then help where you can. What about you?
Well, I'm a big believer life happens.
Yeah.
And we'd like to say that life is, you know, nice and smooth all the time. It's not. However, we do have choices to how we want to respond. So letting go of the guilt of looking after ourselves, that's a learning process. And that's something to be looking at. So letting go of the guilt on looking after yourself is one step to consider there. And then being aware of what's around you, and sometimes, like you said, focus on what you can do rather than what you can't do. Because I also want to add in here, I'm very much about balance. So I think of Ukraine and I think of the people of Russia, because there's two sides, and I'm not getting into politics, but I think of families on both sides where they don't have choice. So there are things that we can do, even declutter for ourselves, which helps us with self-care, and donate. So it's a very valid question, how we keep well, but that's an example of how important it is to continue with self-care.
I mean, there are some people out there, even with all the COVID stuff and other wars, and just when we're in a recession, if the mainstream media constantly bombard, turn it off, remove yourself away, use your tools out of your toolkit, get out into nature, nurture yourself, care for yourself, love yourself, and go and do that in the community. Make the local place better, and then that will just spread outwards.
And I think there's a really great saying about one day at a time. And if a day is too long, then 1 hour at a time. You know, if that's too long, then the next 30 minutes, what do I need at the moment to feel well? And if everything's become too much, like you say, switch it off. There's a choice. It's not being, you know, it's not being nasty to anyone, but you need to find a way to keep well yourself. And I do that. I like to go away, and I like to introvert and then realign myself, and then I'm an extrovert with people, and we look after ourselves. Even after we finish this, we'll find time to bring ourselves back down.
I was saying to one of my mentors yesterday, she's always bouncy, she's full of energy, she's just that kind of person, and it's always like, come on, we could do it, come on, get on. And the thing is, some days, I'm going to be 100% honest, I feel flat as a pancake. Even though I turn up to teach a class or to be with a survivor, and I give it everything, but behind the scenes I'm flat. And then I go on my course and I'm listening to her, and she's bubbly. But I literally need to be near her to get some of that energy to infuse into me. It's really weird. It's almost like I'm not doing anything she says because I haven't got the energy for it, but I just need some of that energy to refeed me and to nurture me. So just imagine, Bev, if you're around people that just bring you down all of the time, how are you going to feel?
Energy vampires, I call them.
So we need to be around people, or we need to be doing things that fill up, I think this is your saying, your love cup.
The emotional cup. Cup.
Okay, but we need to be doing things that bring us joy. So whatever's happening out there in the world, or in our lives, in our relationships, in our jobs, whatever it is, we need to find some moments of joy, and we need to make that happen for ourselves if it's not happening. So we were talking on our last chat
recording together. Yes.
Don't tell everybody we failed at that one. That, you know, we watch comedy, don't we, to just resettle some of that.
Well, laughter is the best medicine, because as we're laughing, when you use those muscles in your face, you're actually releasing serotonin. And when you're releasing serotonin just by smiling, it really changes. It's a mood enhancer. It's a natural mood enhancer. That's what, you know, you can't get better than that.
No. So if you're not feeling it one day, just walk down the road and smile at someone. You'll make their day, and you'll make yourself feel better.
Yeah, I love that.
Right, my love. Have you got anything else to share with us all?
Well, I think you've finished on a really lovely place about smiling. And I love that when you smile, the world smiles back. But there's also something I always love saying. We're all human beings, and we are the best version of ourselves. So stop trying to be what everyone else wants you to be, and ask yourself, who do you want to be?
Yeah. And remember, we're all work in progresses. There's not one perfect human being on this planet, not one. So when you tell me you're perfect, Bev, I don't believe you.
I'm not. I'm a human being.
Yeah, exactly.
This is who I am, and I've learned to accept that. I stopped years ago trying to be the perfect human being for everybody else.
I mean, there is no such thing anyway. Well,
no.
It's same as thing is what is normal. There is no normal.
No. So what's your last thing that you'd like to say, Chris, before we sign off?
Just everybody take care, look after yourselves, really look at how you do talk to yourself, how you act towards yourself, and start changing things there. Because when you start loving and being kind and liking yourself, things change around you.
They absolutely do. They absolutely do. So have a good session at fitness and look forward to another chat soon.
Yeah, we will do. All right, lovely. Thank you. Speak to you soon.
Bye.
Take care.
Yes.